With the competition eliminated and the roster split between the two shows, THQ decided it's time to pit the rosters against each other. Also, with The Rock and Brock Lesnar leaving the company, they had no more cool catchphrases as a tagline. I mean, WWE Smackdown, holler if you hear me, just doesn't sound right.
Generations. Much can be learned from past generations. For past generations write history. They become history. The past may have already been written, but the future awaits a new generation.
Oh my God! It's Smackdown versus Raw!
WWE Smackdown vs. Raw was released on November 2nd, 2004. The graphics are slightly improved, the presentation front has stepped up in a big way. Commentators and ring announcers are all on their respective shows, so no more JR and the King commentating Smackdown. And they've added a lot of features like pre-match minigames, holding onto a submission during a rope break, clean and dirty settings to build up your special meter depending if you're a face or heel, and a golf swing meter for executing knife-edge chops and spanking in the bra and panties match. Congratulations, you got 3 perfect spanks! Now kiss! Smackdown vs. Raw's storyline is more linear, but for the first time ever, the WWE superstars voice their own characters. Poorly.
You thought it was pretty funny to talk a little trash to me in the locker room tonight, huh? Well, who's laughing now, pal? Certainly not the phenomenal French poodle Fifi.
Sounds like someone stuck a mic in a random locker room and said, yeah, this is for a video game or something, just breeze through this so we can leave. 2 other new features were implemented. Create a Championship let you build your very own world title belt using a combination of different parts. And this was the first WWE game to allow players to play online via the PS2 network adapter, but very limited. You can only play singles matches or bra and panty matches. Another first for this game is that there is no appearance by Stone Cold Steve Austin in any playable form. But Smackdown vs. Raw was the first time former WWE Champion Bret the Hitman Hart would be featured in any WWE project since leaving the company after the Montreal Screwjob. He would be a playable legend character you can unlock from the shop zone after purchasing him with money, earned from completing various challenges in the game. Even with a massive amount of improvements and innovations, WWE Smackdown vs. Raw received mixed reviews from critics. The next game of the series would take a new step in establishing a true brand in pro wrestling video games, and venture off onto different platforms. While THQ was publishing the Smackdown series exclusively on Sony home consoles, they were publishing other WWE games on different consoles. The Nintendo 64 got the Aki engine games WrestleMania 2000 and WWF No Mercy. The GameCube would get WrestleMania 18, WrestleMania 19, Day of Reckoning, and Day of Reckoning 2. And the Xbox would get WWE Raw, Raw 2, and WrestleMania 21. That's an impressive list of games with a wide variety of different engines. However, they were not as well received as the Smackdown series. With a clear-cut winner, THQ made the decision to keep the Smackdown vs. Raw name, but began branding it like an EA Sports title, and branching out into other consoles. WWE Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 was released for the Sony PlayStation 2 on November 15, 2005, and for the PlayStation Portable on December 5th of the same year. The presentation has improved with little touches like having the ring announcers in the ring, and the first wrestler that enters is still in the ring. And for the first time ever, Triple H's full Motorhead intro is here and is synced to the music. It took them 5 games with the song to get it right. Think about that. 2006 also introduced new game mechanics like a momentum meter to build up your finisher, the ability to store a finisher in your meter, and a stamina meter which would deplete by doing moves and running. This added a new strategy to the game as you need to micromanage your movements so you don't tire out. You could regain stamina by pressing and holding the select button. When you reach maximum momentum, you can store the finisher for later, or use it right away. Storing it comes at a price, as your finisher will not be as powerful. There are two other mechanics that were introduced that I wish were still around to this day. First is the 3-hand drop, a meter that would show if an opponent got you in a sleeper hold, and by pressing X at the right time, you could escape it. The second feature that was cool but never really took off was the connectivity with the PSP version of 2006. The PSP version had an exclusive legend character in the form of Jake the Snake Roberts, which after unlock, you could transfer him to the PS2 by connecting it via USB cable. I mean, it's a pretty ingenious feature. I mean, no other company would ever think of making you buy two consoles and two versions of the same game just to unlock an exclusive character, right? The PSP version of the game took a step down in graphical quality, but still looks pretty good. Due to size constraints, the commentary was removed and some of the voiceovers, but added 3 mini-games, a trivia game, a poker game, and a Eugene airplane race. 2 new match types were added, but really are modifications of existing match types. Buried Alive is an updated casket match, and Fulfill Your Fantasy was the new bra and panties match, where you get to choose alternate costumes for your divas. Yay? Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 was a big hit on both platforms. However, for its next outing, THQ would venture off for the first time on a non-Sony console. WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 was released on the PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable, and Xbox 360 on November 14, 2006. It's the first SmackDown game to be released on a non-Sony console, and boosted improved graphics and sound over its previous generation's counterparts. Each superstar on the PS2 version was comprised of 500 polygons. The Xbox 360 version was made up of 20,000 polygons. With the jump in graphics also came a completely different control scheme. Grapples were now mapped to the right analog stick, and also introduced ultimate control moves. Pushing down on the right analog stick would initiate the move, and then continue the moves with directional movements. It allows you to control the animation of the move, like holding down the stick for a standing delayed suplex. The arena also had ultimate grapple points. By dragging your opponents to spots like the ring apron, steel steps, or bottom rope, you can perform moves like smashing their faces in or hanging them on the ropes. Backstage areas have been removed for one spot over the railing for some weapons strung around, and you can do a jump off the rafters. The Money in the Bank ladder match was added for this year's version, where 6 superstars fight to gain a briefcase for a guaranteed world title match inside. And just remember kids, Jericho invented that. 2007 also introduced a more refined weight class system, so guys like Rey Mysterio can no longer body slam the Big Show. On the 360 side, it was the first WWE game to have achievements. Not great achievements, but they're there. Good luck winning 50 online matches in a row. General Manager and Season Mode returned with even more ridiculous stories, like Trish Stratus becoming WWE Champion, or Candice Michelle turning Kurt Angle into a woman. Maybe she just misunderstood when Kurt said he wanted TNA. SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 sold very well, especially on the 360, as Microsoft owners never really got a great wrestling game on their consoles. However, a few consoles were left out. A PlayStation 3 version was planned but eventually cancelled, as developers stated that they needed more time with the system. The next installment would bring the series to all 7th gen consoles, including Nintendo. Not only would future titles now be released on all consoles, but would also be taken to the extreme. ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling. A small regional promotion out of South Philadelphia rose to fame with a cult following for their extreme hardcore style of wrestling. However, the company was not able to stay afloat and filed for bankruptcy in early 2001. WWE, much like their acquisition of WCW, would purchase the video library and all trademarks of ECW. With the success of the rise and fall of ECW DVD and a reunion pay-per-view One Night Stand, ECW was given a second life. A new breed unleashed in 2006, and a third show was created. Smackdown vs. Raw 2008 featuring ECW was released on November 13, 2007 for the PS2, PSP, Xbox 360, and made its debut on the PS3, Nintendo DS, Nintendo Wii, and mobile devices. Yuke's implemented a fighting system for each character, ranging from Powerhouse, Technical, Showman, Brawler, High Flyer, Dirty, and Hardcore. This would allow specific moves for superstars, like the Dirty style would let you rake the eyes to increase your momentum meter faster. Ultimate submission mechanics were also introduced. You can now pull back on the analog stick to apply more pressure to a submission, or if you were the one in the move, you could use it to break the hold. A new match type was added called Extreme Rules, basically a fancier name for Hardcore. It allowed you to go under the ring and choose a weapon from a weapon reel with the left analog stick. And for hardcore people, if you pulled out a table and used a finisher on it, you could set it on fire. And unlike real life, the fire doesn't dissipate after 5 seconds. Career mode has now been changed to WWE 24/7 mode, where you can take a creator wrestler and build his stats by working out on your days off, in either do it yourself or have it simulated. Also, finally, you can now add custom soundtracks to your created wrestler entrances, a feature that was lacking in last year's title for the 360. There are also Hall of Fame challenges to complete on the Legend difficulty, like using Shawn Michaels as number 1 in the Royal Rumble and survive. 2008 played almost identical on all consoles, with the exception of the Nintendo consoles. With the DS, the action was on the lower screen, with the status bar and character portraits on the top screen. Control was with the stylus, and it's not really all that great. It's more of a quick-time event, and it's not really enjoyable. The Wii version, of course, used the Wiimote and Nunchuck. You could use the stick to complete maneuvers and waggle it to kick out. Nintendo would try these control schemes again in the next year's title, however it flopped and they would just go with standard controls for all future versions. Join us next week for the finale of the Smackdown Retrospective, where we take up the last few games to bear the Smackdown vs. Raw name and the last few to be owned by THQ before their bankruptcy.